Greetings, dear ones. I'm Drax16, and thank you for joining me for another video. Today's video, I'm gonna film myself. This could be a total flop, or it could be actually worth something. I'm not exactly sure at this time, but I figured it may be beneficial to those who are curious, maybe someone who has a mentally ill person in his or her life, and they want to see how it affects certain people. So, yeah, right now I'm having a hallucination. I can hear voices talking to me, and it's not necessarily an audible voice. It's kind of like telepathy, where they'll insert certain things into my mind. It's kind of hard to describe it, but it's not like an audible voice like how you can hear me right now. It's a lot different than that. Like, for example, like I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, I heard the voice of Satan, but it was not audible. It was like telepathy. That's the only way I can describe it. It's like language of the mind, where he inserted thoughts into my mind. And pardon my language, but he was mad as hell. He was absolutely furious. And I think the reason why he was so angry at me is because at the time when this happened, I had been praying about whether I should make videos on YouTube or not. And Satan evidently knew about that, and he didn't want that to happen. So he appeared. I didn't see him, but I did hear him. And I don't exactly remember what he said, but I have, in fact, asked God if this was a genuine experience with the very devil himself. And God has always said yes. Always. Without hesitation, God has always answered yes, that it was an experience with Satan. And let me just go ahead and say, yes, I do believe that God speaks to his children, whether we acknowledge it or not. Some people are just, quenching the spirit. I believe that all Christians can hear God in one way or another because Jesus said that his sheep hear his voice. And so, yeah. Now, some people say that's only talking about salvation, like his sheep hear his voice in the sense that they follow him in a spiritual way. But I don't think that's what Jesus had in mind when he uttered those words. I believe that God does speak to his children. As the Pentecostal Christian, that's one of the teachings that we teach is that God still speaks to people and that God still performs miracles among people. But anyways, this is probably going to be a long video, um, but I can hear those voices telling me right now to like to worship my higher self, and I don't actually believe that there's such a thing that exists called a higher self. And I know every time I say that, they always laugh at me. But it's not just them, it's also jinns. Jinns. Jinns are kind of like spirits, but they're also religious. So there are jinns who are Christians, jinns who are Muslims, jinns who are atheists, etc. But right now, I'm not really shaking that much. I'm just hearing things. Something is just really not well right now. I can't quite put my finger on it, but and every time I stop speaking, they just attack me with full force. It's really disorienting. So that's why I'm talking so much. Um, but I don't believe that I'm possessed or anything like that. I may be shaking a little bit. I apologize, but that's just the only way I can thwart them off or fight them off, rather. Um, if I don't twitch, if I don't shake a little bit, then I can't fight them off. And who knows what they'll have me do if I give them full control. I mean, theoretically, I don't have to fight them off. If I wanted to let them gain full control of me, they could very well do that. But yeah, a little bit of twitching and shaking is how I like resist what they're doing. or not necessarily what they're doing, but resist what they're telling me to do. Like sometimes I believe that it's in my best interest to murder children. Sometimes I believe that it's in my best interest to cut off my sexual organs. Uh, you know, when I'm in my right mind, of course, I would never do something like that, like those things. But that's just the thing, though. I'm not always in my right mind, and when I'm like this, when I'm having a psychotic episode, um, things happen that just don't make sense to me, and that's what makes it such a horrific mental illness, schizophrenia. Um, it's a really, really bad mental disorder in which a person is basically they have like false beliefs, like delusions, I think is what they're called. I don't think I'm delusional personally because I believe, I mean, I know I recognize that, you know, my take on this is not necessarily unbiased, but I just think that I do suffer from a mental illness. It's just that I don't always recognize where those voices are coming from. So there are times when I hear voices, but I don't know whether they're coming from God, from Satan, or from those higher selves, quote unquote. I don't believe in higher selves, but that's what they call themselves. So that's what I call them, because selves, as in that's a plurality of them. So there's two of them that speak to me. If it was just one, they would be called my higher self. But since there's more than one, they're higher selves. Selves. Oh man, it is horrible right now. They're trying. They're just. They're so emphatic. They want me to commit horrific acts of violence. But that's just what I keep hearing them say. They just and not only that, but there are times when they try and convince me to do something evil. It's one thing to say, "Hey, brother Drac, you should really go into a school and shoot people or start mutilating children." That would be one thing. But not only does it, I mean, it doesn't stop there. Not only do they tell me to do these horrific things, but they try and convince me to do those horrific things. And these higher selves are very patient. They won't take no for an answer. So that's one of the things I have to fight through because, and I mean, I don't let them have full control of me. If I had it my way, they wouldn't affect me at all. But the fact is, I have a pretty serious case of schizophrenia. I mean, it could be worse. It could always be worse. There are people who have it far worse than I do. Because I know one person in particular from my family who has it, which I will let this person remain anonymous. I'm not going to mention their name or how I know them. But yeah, it could always be worse, to be honest. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to tell myself as I move through these hallucinations. Gosh, they're so loud. It's like someone pounding on your door for like 5 minutes straight, and they won't stop knocking until you open the door. Um, but yeah, and every time I stop talking, they unleash their powers again and again and again. So I think it's in my best interest to keep talking. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to talk about because I don't have any script or scriptural references handy. But um, you know, and I've had this disorder, well, not disorder, this illness called schizophrenia for probably about uh, 9 years, maybe 8 to 10 years to be safe. Approximately 8 to 10 years. And now, and this is one thing I really want to stress. This was not the result of me leaving Islam. I used to be a Muslim. I practiced Islam, but these higher selves didn't attack me as soon as I left Islam. No, no. They were still with me when I practiced Islam. But now that I'm a Christian, they haven't left. They're still there affecting me every day. And so, you know, it could always be worse, like I said, but it really just sucks to be perfectly honest. I'm just miserable all the time. But at the same time, I recognize that all of this is just a test. I'm not going to let these higher selves take control of me, no matter how many times they attack me or how severe their beating is. Um, anyways, so yeah, I think that's all I have to say for right now. But thank you very much for watching. Uh, I mean, I guess I could go on longer, but I don't really know what to talk about. Um, I mean, I take medication, every day for, I take what's known as Effexor for depression, which I also suffer from. I suffer from schizophrenia and depression. But if I'm being honest, the depression has actually gotten a lot weaker over the years. I'm not as depressed as I used to be, say 10 or 15 years ago, or heck, longer than that. I mean, I've had depression since I was like 13 years old, and I'm 35 now. So it's been, almost 20 years. No, more than 20 years, 22 years since I've had depression. So that's over half of my life has been spent in a depressed, not necessarily suicidal though. Like I used to have suicidal thoughts all the time, but nowadays most of the cases where I've been suicidal have been the result of those higher selves. They keep telling me to kill myself. And not only is it scary the first or second time it happens, but to I know to expect it. So I guess that's one positive thing I can take from it. It's that I always know when I'm about to have a hallucination because I get what's known as a panic attack. And those are always the worst. I mean, there are times when I think I'm contradicting myself here. I'm sorry if I am, but it's always the worst when I have a panic attack plus a hallucination. And sometimes those two happen at the very same time. And there's nothing I can do to make them stop. I've tried everything I can think of, but nothing works. Even you say, what about reading your Bible or what about prayer, Drac? Well, even that doesn't work most of the time. And that really hurts me to know that because, we turn to God when we're facing difficulty. It's perfectly natural to cry out to a higher power greater than yourself when you're overwhelmed. Nothing could be more natural than that, which is why I would say that atheism is not rational at all. It couldn't be less rational. It couldn't be more irrational because the natural reaction of going through a hard time, the reflex, if you will, because remember, we were all made in the image of God. So it's not uncommon for, a deathbed repentance, quote unquote. I mean, I don't think most of those deathbed repentances most of them are probably not genuine. Well, that's just my guess. Maybe I'm wrong. Um, but yeah, so gosh, sorry if I'm repeating myself, but they just keep shouting at me. And it's not just two voices. Oftentimes, it's a bunch of jinns mixed in there. So it's and I don't believe that these higher selves are jinns because I think they would have revealed that by now, or God would have told me by now if these were merely the result of jinns. But I hear jinns every single day. And back to what I said, I don't believe that that's a delusion. I believe that I can not only hear jinns, but speak to them. Not only that, but I believe that God has asked me to be a minister to the jinns. Sometimes I evangelize them. Now, some are more receptive than others, admittedly. Not all of them are open to learning about Christ or the gospel, but some of them are. Some of them, in fact, I've had some wonderful experiences with jinns. I can remember probably about 10 years ago. Yeah, probably about 10 years ago when I was having a really, really nasty panic attack. And all of a sudden, a jinn started speaking to me, and he said that I should read a book. I figured, why not? What have I got to lose? So I went to my bookshelf and I got a book out about the Quran. It wasn't the Quran itself; it was about the Quran. And as soon as I started reading that book, I don't remember the title. I don't remember the title, but it was about like the history of the Quran and how it's been perfectly preserved according to Islam. So yeah, and as soon as I started reading, it went away like that with a snap of a finger. So that panic attack instantly went away. Now I don't know how this jinn knew that this would happen. I have no clue. But whatever it was, it helped me get rid of that panic attack. So that's an example of a good experience with the jinn. An example of a bad experience, I mean, oh my goodness, where do I begin? There are so many bad experiences I've had, but not all jinns are evil. Some of them are good. Some are extremely good, like the jinn that suggested that I should read a book, and that's an example of a good jinn. There are good jinns and bad jinns, male jinns and female jinns, old jinns and young jinns, etc. So they come in a variety of different kinds, just like human beings. There are good people and bad people, religious people and not religious people, and stuff like that. There's an incredible amount of variety when it comes to the jinns, and I don't believe that this is a delusion. I mean, on some level, I am delusional because the voices that I hear, these higher selves, aren't actually real, but they do seem to be real as far as I can decipher, as far as I can tell. So I don't like talking about my problems as if I'm delusional, but from a medical point of view, from an unbiased point of view, I am in fact delusional. So, it's not normal to sit on my bed for 2 hours and thinking about cutting off my private parts, but those jinns attack me with those thoughts, and those higher selves attack me. And like I said before, I don't always know where a voice is coming from, which could mean that, you know, I mean, sometimes I just know. Sometimes, like when the Lord speaks to me, it's something that's really obvious. So, but not always. Sometimes He delays His answers to my prayer, and sometimes He rejects my prayers. Um, or sometimes it's a delayed yes or a delayed no. So He doesn't always answer prayers right away, which is okay, I guess, because I don't always know what I should pray for. Sometimes I ask wrongly. Sometimes my motivation behind my prayers has a lot of pride laced in there. So there are valid reasons why God rejects not rejects, but doesn't act upon my requests. There are perfectly valid reasons. It says, I believe it's in Isaiah where He says, "My actions are not like your actions, and my thoughts are not like your thoughts." Anyways, so yeah, they're starting to go away, so it's getting better as I talk about it. But you know, and I did. This is not my first time making a long video. I've done the entire. I sang through the entire book of Psalms, and that those videos took a long time. But anyways, that's all I have for right now. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it was, I don't know, educational on some level, maybe to learn about what some schizophrenic people deal with on a daily basis. But this is not an example of a particularly hard hallucination because I do get ones that are far worse. And there are times when I can't speak at all because those higher selves are so intense. So, yeah. Anyways, for now, that's enough. But thank you for watching my video. I hope that all of you have a beautiful day. God bless you.